this is Nicky G and welcome to Better Commander. Today we're talking about Ashnod the Uncaring. Doing a Commander deep dive, buddy. Ashnod, also known as Ashnod the Uncaring, the Red Woman, also known as Nod, and a lesser known nickname, the Ginger Brute. This art with the transmigrants kind of flailing around is a little bit suspect. She looks like Lemon Grab from Adventure Time. Unacceptable! She's got a ton of lore and was actually the person to provide Urza with the Golgothian Silex. She had a little thing with Tawnos, if you know what I mean. I don't know what she sees in that dude. He's a little lame if you ask me. Even though they were on opposing sides of the war, they were canoodling in the woods one day when Gix showed up. Ashnod held him off while Tawnos ran away crying to Urza. This card is pretty powerful, buddy. Let's read the heck out of it. But first, gently depress that like button. Have a little tryst in the woods with the subscribe button, right? Tell Gix to leave them kids alone in the comments. Alright, here we go. Ashnod the Uncaring. 2 blue, black, and a red for a legendary creature. Human Artificer. It's a 1/4 with Death Touch. Whenever you activate an ability of an artifact or creature that isn't a mana ability, if one or more permanents were sacrificed to activate it, you may copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. This seems to be a design choice I've seen before. We have double tokens in Simic, we have double death triggers in Orzhov, and Panharmonicon double the enter the battlefield effects. The Death Touch is going to come in handy on this. It's a nice little bonus, but this doesn't seem to be designed to attack. Ashnod's a 1/4 for 5, so does this ability balance out the weak stat block? She has no protection at all and will be a prime target for removal. And as such, Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots seem like obvious includes. Plus in this deck you can move them onto creatures that tap to sacrifice for additional hasty value. This is a deck you can build in a ton of directions. My first thought was zombies, believe it or not, but we'll get to that later. Her triggered ability mentions 2 card types, artifacts and creatures. That means the abilities of enchantments like Goblin Bombardment will not be copied. If you wanted to be a very mean magical man, you could really lean into artifacts. Assembling a critical mass of artifacts is one powerful way to build Ashnod. Consider Salvager of Ruin. It's 3 generic mana for an artifact creature. It's a construct, 2/1. Sacrifice Salvager of Ruin. Choose target permanent card in your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn. Return it to your hand. Not only does this card sacrifice itself, but it can be used to get back other stuff you sacrificed this turn. Pair this with a Mindslaver and you got yourself a party, buddy. Mindslaver is 6 generic mana for a legendary artifact. 4 and tap, sacrifice Mindslaver. You control target player during that player's next turn. Mindslaver is a mean effect, and if sacrificed with Ashnod on the battlefield, can be used to control 2 players. You can mutilate their board states, you can ruin their hands, you can use their removal on their own stuff. It's absolutely brutal. I have done this to people in the past and I always feel bad about it. Ashnod can easily construct a Slaver lock on the board, make the game of Commander into a brutal nonsense fest where scooping by your opponents is the only sane option. Time Sieve is another brutal card. It's blue and a black for an artifact. Tap, sacrifice 5 artifacts, take an extra turn after this one. If Ashnod's out, you have another 2 turns to assemble 5 more artifacts, then you can take another 2 turns and assemble 5 more artifacts, while everybody just kind of puts their heads in their hands and cries. But Ashnod, she's uncaring, dude. The lady with the bangs, bro, she doesn't give a hoot about that. And you can tutor out all these pieces with the Koldotha Forge Master. It's 5 generic mana for an artifact creature. It's a construct 3/5. Tap, sacrifice 3 artifacts. Search your library for an artifact card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. You want to double that right up. This guy's sacrificing himself to get 2 artifacts onto the battlefield under Ashnod's tutelage. So with that out of the way, you can go get Rings of Brighthearth and Basalt Monolith. Get both of them off to the battlefield with the Koldotha Forge Master. You're generating infinite mana, buddy. You can draw your deck. You can do whatever you want with infinite mana. Yeah, man, artifacts are great. The fun part about a deck like this is getting there. You want cards like Conjurer's Bauble. It's 1 generic mana for an artifact. Tap, sacrifice it. Put up to 1 target card from your graveyard in the bottom of your library and draw a card. You're basically paying 1 mana, putting this in the graveyard and drawing 2 cards. You also have the Implement of Examination. That's another good one. Commander Sphere gets way better as well. I also want to use this opportunity to point out Dreamstone Hedron, Hedron Archive, and Mindstone draw double the cards with Ashnod on the battlefield. Once you assemble your critical mass of artifacts, these can draw into your tutor so you can go get the good stuff. And you got the old Moonsilver Key, 2 generic mana for an artifact. 1 and tap, sacrifice Moonsilver Key, search your library for an artifact card with a mana ability or a basic land card. Reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. This is a reliable way to go get Ashnod's Altar or Phyrexian Altar or Basalt Monolith, or a couple lands if that's what you need. And if you want to get real tricky and lean into artifacts real hard, you can get Clan Crafter, 1 in the blue for a legendary enchantment. It's background. Commander creatures you own have 2. Sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, and draw a card. This gives Ashnod the ability, and Ashnod's a creature buddy. Let's take a little break from artifacts for a minute and talk about cards that can slot into Ashnod no matter how you build her. Out of Modern Horizons 2, we got Dauthi Voidwalker. It's a creature who sacrifices himself. It's black for a creature, Dauthi Rogue. It's a 3/2. It has Shadow. If a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, instead exile it with a void counter on it. Tap, sacrifice it, choose an exiled card an opponent owns with a void counter on it. You may play it this turn without paying its mana cost. For those of you who haven't seen this card, it's a house if you're only getting 1 card. The price hasn't budged too much since it was released, still about $7-8. I opened a few of these and scooped them right into decks, and with Ashnods on the battlefield, you got a double dose. So this theme of sacrificing creatures led me immediately to think of Reanimator Shenanigans, which is an archetype that I just invented. Life Drain effects are fantastic if you're looping creatures in and out of the graveyard. You got your Mayhem Devil, you got your Zulaport Rave Master, you got Judith the Scourge Diva, you got Vindictive Vampire. Take a card like Whisper Blood Liturgist, 3 in a black for a legendary creature, human cleric. It's a 2/2. Has tap, sacrifice 2 creatures, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. This doesn't say anything about tokens, so we can get a card like Siege Gang Commander, sacrifice it to itself, get it into the yard. Sacrifice 2 of the tokens to Whisper's ability, bring it back, generating more tokens, plus whatever other sweet goblin you have in the graveyard. Maybe you got a Sling Gang Lieutenant in there. If you have Ashnod on the battlefield, you get them both back. 7 tokens for the price of 2. Sacrifice them all to Sling Gang Lieutenant on your opponent's end step. If you have Zulaport guy out there, that's a whole lot of life lost. Sling Gang Lieutenant's activated ability also triggers Ashnod. I think if you want to get real nasty, there's a Goblin semi-tribal sub-theme here. If that's your jam, you can generate a lot of value off of cards like Goblin Trash Master and other things that sacrifice themselves. Then you have cards like Pashalik Mons and Weirding Shaman. With Ashnod on the battlefield, you're doubling token production. You can easily go infinite with a Phyrexian Altar. At that point, any of your drain effects wins us the game. And you know what, man? There's a bunch of creatures that have an activated ability that reanimates and also requires the sacrifice of a permanent to activate. We got Hell's Caretaker, we got Doomed Necromancer, we got Apprentice Necromancer, we got Bonecaller Cleric. You're getting 2 for the price of 1, buddy. And another way you could go, hear me out on this one, is Zombie Tribal. You got Catapult Fodder, 2 in a black for a creature zombie. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control 3 or more creatures that each have toughness greater than their power, transform Catapult Fodder. These days, ghouls are the only abundant resource in Thray, but you know what I mean, it's a 1/5. Transforms into Catapult Captain, 2 in a black, tap it, sacrifice another creature, target opponent loses life equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness. And they're way more happy to share the wealth. This is a 2/6. Oh my god, this card is so dumb. But it has toughness greater than power, and so does Ashnod. The activated ability is dope because we can pump our zombies with a ton of Lords of the Tribe. I don't know if this would make the cut in a competitive deck, but it's a fun little card. And you have an old classic favorite of mine, Ghoulcaller Gisa from 2014. 3 black for a legendary creature, human wizard. It's a 3/4. Has black and tap, sacrifice another creature, create X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens where X is the sacrificed creature's power. Gisa is one of my all-time favorite cards. This goes bonkers with Ashnod. These two look like they would party together. Dang, Zulaport Rave guys, rave. You got Cleaver Scab, 3 in a blue for a creature zombie horror. It's a 2/4. It has 3 in tap, sacrifice another zombie. Create 2 tokens that are copies of the sacrificed creature. This is such a cool thematic card. Creating 4 Gravecrawler tokens feels really good. And oh my god, dude, there's so many shenanigans you can get up to with Gravecrawler in a zombie deck. Infinitely recurring and sacrificing to the aforementioned Phyrexian Altar and or Rooftop Storm. Zombies have certain payoffs for zombies entering and dying. You got Plague Belcher, you got Diregraph Captain. You can finish the table with those 2. You can trot out the old Vengeful Dead. All these cards are going to trigger on Gravecrawler dying, so you set up the Gravecrawler combo and you win the game, buddy. And if you're creating tons of tokens, you can win the old-fashioned way with overwhelming flying zombies with Hordewing Scab. So there you go, my friends. You have artifacts. You got Goblin Reanimator Aristocrats and zombies with a Gravecrawler combo. Ashnod is an incredibly interesting character with an interesting story. How the heck would you build this beast? Let me know in the comments below, and remember, Ashnod doesn't care what you do. You're just fodder on the altar of capitalist America. Sneaky G from Better Commander, signing off.